I can have rough days and bad days and start doubting and what's going on. And I've had those conversations with God. Our little one has seizures, and I'm like, yeah, why? I mean, I don't understand. I mean, you can take it away. You can part a sea.
Kevin, I've been excited about this interview for a couple weeks now since I contacted you. On your bio, it says you're a solo creator, you're an
Yes.
author, you're a husband, you're a father of three, including one with special needs, which I hope to
Yep.
talk to you about. And the thing that intrigued me is you are a Jesus freak. Now, I
I
loved
do my
that.
best.
Yeah. I loved hearing that, and I just made me want to contact you and hear your story. So, can you just share a little bit about how you came to be a follower of Jesus?
Yeah, it's funny because I grew up in a Christian household. From the youngest age I can remember, and I don't even know what age that was, I just remember going to church. Typically, we went to church with my dad. My mom and dad were different faiths, but they were both Christians. We ended up going to church with dad. Mom would stay home and cook, which I thought was interesting. There's only three of us, but she was a great cook. And so I just kind of grew up that way. And then later, when I went to high school, it ended up being a Christian school, but that's where my parents wanted me to go. I didn't have a lot to say, didn't really care, didn't even want to be in school, quite honestly, and started going to a different church. In fact, I remember when I didn't go for a bit. And I remember one morning, my dad, I was in high school at this point, and I had my car and I could drive. And he said to me, "Get up, you're going to church." And I said, "No, I'm not." He said, "You're going to church. You're either going to go with me or you're going to go with your friends." And me being the defiant, little jerk teenager I was, I said, "Well, I'm not going with you." And he said, "Well, then go with your friends." So I started going to a church that I knew some of my high school buddies went to, and some of the ladies. And that's where I started going, and eventually was baptized there. And actually during that time, I was still going there some into college, and at one point thought I would go into youth ministry. So I got really tight with our youth minister, youth pastor there, and he was really, really good, guy named Doug, and he was fantastic about mentoring, period. I mean, he was a great youth minister. He would give us opportunities to speak at church. So I was actually in high school and I got to speak a couple of times. Of course, we always did it on Sunday night, in case kids mess up.
Right.
Um, and so from there, and then I ended up going to a Christian college, and, and I'd have bouts where I would go, stop going for quite a while, and then finally decided to get back into church. This was years and years and years later. After college, stopped going for several years. Ended up going to this church because a buddy of mine was there. Started going to the singles program, and that's where I met. I didn't know it at the time, but she would be my wife. But that's where I met Lisa. So that's been it. I mean, faith has always been part of our lives. I mean, my wife's a Christian, and her family is a Christian, and her sisters, and it's just kind of been one of those things that we are. And we were talking right before you started recording. I think I want to make, you said something and I appreciated that. I think sometimes as Christians it's easy to give off the air, the kind of the feeling like everything's great. I don't have any problems because I've
I
got
got
Jesus.
Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have Jesus, and I've got
Right.
that assurance. But dang, I mean, I can have rough days and bad days and start doubting, and what's going on. And I've had those conversations with God. Our little one has seizures, and I'm like, yeah, why? I mean, I don't understand. I mean, you can take it away, you can part a sea, but I always know that there's a plan, even if I don't understand it, even if I don't agree with it. There's a plan, and there's been time and time and time and time again in our lives where the faith to many didn't make any sense at all. Probably not to us if we'd have been honest, but it's God's always provided, period. Period. So that's it. And why I chose Jesus freak, I don't know. I'm kind of wired differently. I don't like the norm. When
I
people say you can't, I'm like, oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, no, I loved that, and that's what I said. Drew me to you in the first place. I got to find out that guy's story, and you mentioned a couple interesting things. First of all, you talk about when we're young, and you had a parental figure say, "No, you are going to church."
Yeah.
That didn't feel good at the time, but I saw that almost as a pivotal time in your life, maybe even affected your walk, your journey later on.
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, I was an only child. Well, still am. I'm an only
So
child.
yeah, I grew up an only
There you
child.
go.
Yeah.
Probably what another reason we're clicking. We were close. My parents, my mom and I, or my mom passed away last year before Christmas, but we've been close and we've not been close. You have that rebellious time in my teen years where, my dad and I especially kind of went at it, you know. But looking back, heck yeah, I'm glad he said you're going somewhere because if he had said okay and just shut the door, what? I don't know. I don't know. And the fact that he even gave me the ultimatum, showed me that now he's a lot smarter than I would have been because I would have probably just said, "Get up, you're going to church with us. Get in the van." And he he played the one or the other, probably knowing I didn't want to go with him. And either way, he got me to church. So it definitely paid off. And I think that means a lot. And then I mean, I would be remiss to not, say that, throughout my journey, um I've had people in my life that have become close friends that are Christians that have impacted me as well, even just watching them live out faith. I had a really good friend years and years ago. I guess it was right after college, a guy named John. He would pray every day about, God, tell me what to wear. I mean, he was,
Wow. Yeah.
and we clicked a lot. And I think those are the type things that just mean a lot, even if you're not thinking about it at the time, who you can surround yourself with and who can rub off on you.
It's important about who we intentionally hang out with. And then again, I hear some parenting wisdom from your dad, even though I know that naturally there was some conflict, as I think there is with all of us growing up. And I love also that through that process, it's how you met your wife. So that's super cool too,
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
work through that as
Oh,
well.
just when I think I'm pretty smart, he always shows me he's a lot smarter.
Amen. Amen. Now, I wanted to touch on something that you briefly mentioned, your youngest son who does have
Mhm.
special needs.
Yes.
Take me through a little bit of that walk and the challenges and how that has affected your faith, either at times being challenged and at times maybe growing it.
We had never been around anybody with special needs. My wife has a cousin that is, I guess he'd be autistic, but beyond that, I mean, on a day-to-day basis, as part of your family.
Right.
And we had been foster parents for quite a while. We hadn't even experienced that. So it's a whole world that it's like we knew it existed, but we didn't know anything about it until we're in it. I don't ever want to say, I mean, Elias is his name. It's never a burden. There are those times when you get frustrated, it's just like you're tired, you're exhausted, you're ready to kind of just crash on the couch and he has a seizure, or, like he wears briefs. He'll probably wear briefs the rest of his life, and, he pees and poops when he's ready to pee and poop, usually not when I'm ready for him to go.
Right.
And but then you just look at it. I mean, I've said this before that in a way, I think we all have special needs. It's just they're different. And I see God working through him in ways that I don't understand. My wife was talking once, and she can share the story a lot better than I can about that. When he's talking, it's almost like he's having conversations with God because he's nonverbal. He can make noise, but he can go and he'll mimic, to a degree, songs back and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, God understands exactly what he's saying, exactly how he feels. If we can't, and that's the frustrating thing too, he can't tell us, my head's hurting or my stomach's hurting or that's uncomfortable or something like that. He has a high threshold of pain, um, way more than me. And so we have to be careful about that too. We've learned, I mean, he's 15 now, 15 at the recording of this. We've learned over time some some things that can trigger seizures, like heat. We found that out the hard way going to Disney in August. one year,
Wow.
and it was so hot, and it started triggering. It was like, oh, okay, so extreme heat is that way, but other things can be that. So, it's difficult sometimes managing insurance, managing things he needs that are more priced or priced higher, just because they're adaptive toys. And I mean, literally, we've seen toys that you could go buy at, Target for $15. There's this one toy I'm thinking of that the adaptive version of that was $125.
Wow.
And, and those things are tough. The flip side to that, though, is we have seen amazing stories of people just doing things for us and for him that you almost feel bad when they do it. It's like, no, 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 don't. And we've seen God work in those moments too. So it's not. It, we never ever want to have anybody think that, one, we don't want them to feel pity on him. Because he's living a life, and we know that he reflects back onto people, and he may have a deeper relationship with God than I have right now, because whatever that relationship is that I can't see and can't understand.
Right.
But at the same time, it can get frustrating too. I mean, would I love him to be able to talk and run? Yeah. Even though I know one day he will. And that's what keeps us happy too, knowing that one day he's going to be free of all this mess, and just running circles around all the angels up there.
Amen. Got me thinking, that the hope that we have in Jesus, like I can't imagine, and maybe you can talk to it a little bit, if you were going through this challenge, dealing with a child with special needs,
Mhm.
not believing in anything, how do you think that would change your experience in the struggles of this?
You mean like if we didn't have any relationship, any?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's funny you say that, because I've said that to my wife before, about just not just about things in general. It's like,
Yeah.
sometimes I don't know how people get through the day if they have no hope of anything. I mean,
Yeah.
you kind of feel not like you and I have some secret code, or we're in some secret society, and I think that's what blows people's mind. It's like, yeah, you can't buy your way into it. It is free. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know, because it's being able to pray and know we're heard, and we may not get the answers we want. He's still not seizure free, and that's my constant daily prayer. But he has good days too. But I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, because it just, there's a peace. What's the word? There's a peace that surpasses understanding.
Right.
And we have experienced that over and over and over and over again. Not even just with Elias and our other kids, just sometimes in life in general. I don't know. And again, I don't want anybody hearing or watching this to say, "Wow, Kevin's got, doesn't have any problems." Oh, no, 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 no. We don't have enough time on your recorder to talk about problems and issues and doubts and things like that. That's not it. But at some point, it comes down to stepping back, and letting kind of the spirit lead a little bit more, you know, take a pause, which is not usually my first response. If somebody's not a believer watching this, it's like again, it's not an exclusive thing. You don't buy your way into it. It's not like, well, I'd like to really get some of that. You can. That's the thing. It's, I'm no special, other than the fact that, I'm a masterpiece, just like you and everybody. That was, like Ephesians 2 says, one of my favorite verses, we're created as a masterpiece to do the great things that, God has planned for us long ago. And, if people would just start thinking that way about themselves, maybe they go, okay, 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 okay.
Right. And the masterpiece is a beautiful way to say it, and that we are truly loved. And one of the things I'm hearing also is that when we place our trust in something bigger than us, it doesn't remove the problems, but it means
Yep.
that we're never alone. So we don't fluctuate as much with our circumstances, knowing that we believe in something that's greater than us, it does not remove pain or suffering or other those,
Not at all.
but the hope that I'm hearing, is an important part of peace through the process.
Yeah, and I think it's just even that hope. That's a great way you put that. It's that hope that also brings the peace. You
Right.
know,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, the world's a mess and it's chaos, and we're not promised good times, and I think a danger can be getting too comfortable. So there's all these
Talk about that.
extremes.
That's interesting. I want to hear more you say about that. What's the dangers of getting too comfortable?
Here's a great example. When years ago, church we went to, there was one of the, I think he's one of the elders there, and he made a comment one day, and I'll butcher it, but he was like, so when you go to the grocery store and you're just shopping for groceries, do you thank God for the farmers? Do you thank God for the guys that put the produce out? And I'm like, no, I haven't. Because you know what? It was no big deal to go to the store, run in, grab what I needed, and get home. And so it's like when I think everything is just kind of okay, and there's it's easy to get comfortable. Nothing bad happened today.
Hmm.
Everybody's breathing, everybody's living that I know and made a little money. And so you go, yeah, okay. And and I think those are the things that can catch you off guard, and sometimes we need to get uncomfortable to really see that, oh, okay, I still need that connection. I still need to rely on God. I still need to allow the spirit to work in me, doesn't mean I can't have good times, but I think that's the danger of like complacency.
Yes, I seen that in my own life a lot as well, in the sense of like our pastor one time kind of had a similar exercise. He said, go on a walk and thank God for everything you see. And when you come back in, thank him for your yard, thank him for the grass that's growing, thank him for your front door that keeps people out, thank you from everything you can think of. And that's the same thing in the sense of we sometimes I feel like believers, we do two things. We forget the gift giver, we look at just the gifts. And then even sometimes I notice that I've been working on not letting my blessings become a burden. Even this YouTube channel, I could forget that this is a blessing to be able to share Jesus with people, be able to potentially monetize it. And it just becomes a burden. I got to do another video, or even, I've got a triplex and I focus on the repairs that need to get done. And, you just had AC, issues. And
Yeah.
sometimes I could let my blessings become a burden, and I'm trying not to do that, even though.
So I read every night to Elias, and we read a Bible story and then just some other book. And we just started Job. And it's a kid's Bible, but it's thick and it's really nice. And look at what Job went through. His friends are like, just curse God and die, get over with it.
Right.
And then he does kind of get a little more frustrated with God. And I wouldn't have wanted to be on that end of going when God says, okay, are you done?
Right.
It's like, oh no. But I think if I go through the day and I've never thanked God for anything, this is me.
Yeah.
It's like, I need to step back, but that doesn't mean that I can't get frustrated about something. That is, I mean, we're going back to that, but I think it's important, you know. There are those rough days where it's just like, dad gummit, just nothing, the van won't start, and now this is going on and this is going on. And then sometimes in the scope of things, it's like, okay, fine. I got stuck in traffic. It didn't make me feel good at the time, but whoop-de-doo, it's just one of those things.
I think we're talking about a couple of different things within the thing. One is being honest with your walk and with God.
Yeah.
God doesn't want robots. God wants us to cry out to him instead of
Yes.
turning away from him, especially in situations where we're upset. I think that's a worship in a certain respect, but at the same time, putting it into perspective. I mean, I'm hearing those two things in what you're
Yeah.
saying. Speaking of putting things in perspective, I really want to talk about something you had mentioned also with the blessings that jobs give us, income and the security and all the things, and possibly creative outlets, which
Yeah.
you're going to talk about a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about losing your job later in life, I think this can really help a lot of people. I see a lot of people struggling right
Okay.
now.
Well, and I'll preface it by saying when I started college, I started, and I'd had the part-time jobs. I think honestly, my first part-time job, I was probably 14, you
Wow.
know, and then, but they were extreme part-time jobs. And then when I started college, I actually got a job at a radio station, being a DJ. So I had pretty much been employed since like the mid 80s. I mean, I went from station TV station to TV station, but I was never without a job forever. I mean, in fact, some stations I would leave on my last day be on a Friday and I'd start on a Monday. It took me a while to go, okay, build a little buffer in there.
Yeah, give yourself a couple weeks.
When we moved to North Carolina and I took the position at the station that I was at, I ended up being at that company for 24 years, which is kind of unheard of in the TV business. And we knew that they were slowly combining the two stations. And I get it. You didn't need two general managers and two sales managers and two creative directors and two everything. You just didn't. And so I knew that eventually they were going to eliminate my job because I think the year before they eliminated my job, they cut my team in half. So I knew it was coming. And I remember going in that day and the owner of the company, and he actually is the one who came and told me that, we're eliminating your job. He said it's going to be hard. He said, and they put together a package for me, and it was nicer than I deserved. But they did a nice job of taking care of me as much as they could. And I remember, and this again, it's hard to I don't know if people can get this, but I wasn't mad, I wasn't angry. I'd rather not lost it that day, but I did. And he at one point he said, Kevin, you're taking this awful well. You got to help me feel better about this. I remember saying two things, and we had a running joke. And I said, well, you could get me a Hummer. And he's like, no, because that was always a running joke is, can I get a Hummer? And he was like, no.
Right.
And I said, well, here's the thing. I said, Jim, I'm a Christian and, you've taken care of me. This is like a family business. You've treated me like family. You're taking care of me now, and I know things will work out. So I just, that's the way I feel. And I think that made him feel better, even though he was letting my position go. So I remember calling my wife because I had a lunch appointment with a friend. It wasn't business related. So I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and have lunch. And I remember calling her on the way and saying, well, they cut my position. And she started crying. And I said, well, honey, you knew it was coming. She said, yeah, I know. I just didn't think it would be today. And so told the kids and we got home. And, the next day was weird, but it kind of felt like vacation for a couple of days until the next week rolled around. And I'm like, okay, now it's feeling really weird because I'm not going into work.
Right.
And so then you start kind of going through that. What am I supposed to do? I don't know. And I had a couple of friends want me to be just mad. I mean, maybe it was an age thing, and they almost got mad at me because I wasn't getting mad back at the company.
Right.
I mean, you would have those moments. It's like, well, could I have done something differently? What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Where it really started kind of doing that a little bit more is, I'd been in television for most of those years, decades. So I had several people say, Kevin, you're going to have stations, knocking down your door. And I'm like, yeah, I bet you're right.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of started believing my own lies about how good I was and how important I would be to somebody. And the funny thing is, none of those stations got that memo, Darius, because they didn't come knocking down my door. And I actually applied for a position at three different stations, two in other cities we'd had to move. And they never ever panned out, ever. And I remember, I'd applied at some other positions too. There was like a nonprofit I applied to and some different things. And just nothing was working out. And sometimes you wouldn't get a call back and stuff like that. And I know if people are watching this, they've probably been through it even more than I was. And I remember the last TV station I was I was interviewing like for the second or third time, and I remember the general manager, we'd gone to lunch a couple of times. He said, "Do you really, really want to come back and work in TV?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I didn't, but I thought I needed to because,
Right.
there's benefits and stuff like that. And at the same time, I thought, I've done it, so I know I can do it. Like it would just be no big deal. What an arrogant guy. And so it didn't work out. And he didn't offer it. He offered to somebody else. And I remember telling my wife that if this does not work out, I'm going to take it as God saying, I've got something else planned. Are you gonna like have some trust here? And I think that was kind of the period of, okay, now I've got to start living this talk where I used to always tell everybody, Darius, dude, you just got to trust. You got to trust. But I
Right.
wasn't really living it that much.
Right.
And the reality of it is I just ended up being in business for me. I never grew up thinking I'd want to be an entrepreneur or have my own business. I've always admired those people that kind of worked for themselves. But the trappings, and it's not a bad thing, I don't say that bad, but I was paid a really nice salary. I had really good benefits, including healthcare and stuff like that. And it was a good company, and we got a ton of other perks. And so you get kind of, I don't know if I want to say seduced by that, but you fall into that, just like, yeah, yeah, just crazy things are going on, nothing unethical or anything, but it's just like, yeah, but I can suck it up because I'm getting paid well and blah, 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 blah. And then you're out on your own and it's like, oh, okay, I got to figure out healthcare. And dang, I didn't make anything last month. And people aren't returning my call. And the flip side to that, which I didn't know at the time though, is it was the best thing could happen because of things that Elias would need and other things going on with family and stuff like that, that I didn't have to go and ask anybody for off work
Right.
or anything. In fact, you and I had another time scheduled for this, and I said, "Hey, can we postpone?" Something was going on, and you were gracious about it, and it's allowed me not only to have my own schedule, but also, dude, just meet people around the world I would have never, ever been able to help them or learn from them as well. So, I never got into the age thing. I mean, I don't mind sharing, I'm 62 at the time of this recording. One day I'll be older, maybe.
That's true.
Um, but I never got into it. I mean, I had friends go, I bet it was an age thing, but it was an age thing. Maybe, I don't know, whatever. I mean, why give that over? I don't,
So I'm hearing
so
that you try hard to count your blessings, right? To look at the
I
what's
try.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now talk a little bit about what God's doing in your life now, because I think you brilliantly transitioned from traditional media now into doing YouTube. So can you talk a little bit about what you're doing on YouTube, share your channel so
Yeah.
people can subscribe and
Yeah, and I've had people ask me before, about YouTube in general, and it's like, I don't remember the first time ever going, "Oh, wow, there's this thing called YouTube." I don't. I mean,
right.
in when I was in TV, we had a YouTube channel, but like at the time, probably sadly, there's still businesses that do this. We just put our promos for and our commercials on there. That's what we used it for,
I see.
And so I didn't really get what this YouTube thing could do or be. I knew so I was the creative director at a Fox station and we were more entertainment based. So we did a lot of digital stuff. I mean, we created some cool things that involved, voting on an app. I mean, our station created an app with a group, one of the few Fox stations that wasn't owned by Fox that created its own streaming app.
Wow.
And so I helped, with the marketing and the design of that and stuff. And when I say design, like sketching things out on paper and go, does this look good? What do you think? And so, I've always I love tech and gear and creating, and I was always drawn to the visual side of it. And so, um, I've kind of always been in that world. I never thought I would be totally in that world. What ended up happening is The reason I started my own business, I had actually started an LLC on paper while I was still working for TV because I thought, yeah, one day it'd be kind of cool to have a business, you know? I mean,
Sure.
that was the extent of it. I think I'll have an LLC. I hear they're really cool. That was about it. And not a lot of deep thought here. And so that became my business. But in the meantime, where I kept trying to chase these jobs, I had people asking me, "Hey, can you help me um, with some videos?" And most of them were there was a church and a nonprofit, and I love working with nonprofits. And I ended up producing some videos for this nonprofit agency that was a foster care adoption counseling agency.
Oh, wow, perfect.
And it was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do this. Now it was more hands-on then. So I'm a huge 24 fan, the show 24. They were doing a contest where the network, where basically they were going to select a handful of stations and fly reporters to New York for a special VIP event. Of course, they had a lot of contest winners from around the country, and it was going to be on whatever the battleship that was parked outside there. They were going to do a screening there, have the whole cast there, including Kiefer. And of course, the reason they want press there is to, start talking
Oh,
about it.
yeah.
And I had a rep that worked with me at Fox, and he said, "Hey, you ought to apply for this to go." And I said, I'm not a reporter. He said, "I think you'll be one of the ones they pick." So I actually did a video about how big of a fan I was, and I was one of the ones they picked.
Nice.
Well, I actually had to have two of my producers train me on our Canon 60D to take with me so I knew how to even operate it so I could interview people. So, there's that learning curve right there, but I got to interview like Kiefer and the whole crew. Now, I share that to say I think where I've been directed more and more in my channel and even with people I've been able to work with, whether it's coaching or consulting or whatever, I don't do any hands-on now for clients just because there's guys out there they're better, they're cheaper, they're faster. But I do more consulting and coaching and things like that. But where I love to help people are the people that are just starting, more the beginners that, or maybe they've started, but they're kind of stuck. They're not pros. They don't, they're not looking for videos about how to edit like a pro. They're not even thinking about that. They're just
Right.
trying to think about, okay, I've done this thing for my business or church or nonprofit or just my family vacation. How do I even get it on YouTube? I love that because when you see those light bulbs go off, like, oh, that's how you do it. And it helps me remember what I have forgotten. And there's still a lot I don't know. Just for clarity, there's still a lot I don't know. There is no better platform than YouTube. It's not perfect. It's got its flaws. But in terms of reaching the most number of people, earning money, potential to earn money, growing, and then what you can do with that. And it became my core platform.
Nice. Well, I can see, God working in your life even through this, through using your experience and your natural and God-given abilities in order to transition into this YouTube channel. So tell people what the name of it is. And by the way, there will be links or a link in the description below to subscribe to Kevin's channel. But what's the
Yeah,
name?
yeah, it's my name. It's at Kevin Kolbe, which is Kolbe. And that was another one of those things where I kept thinking, hey, what do I want to call it? What do I want to call it? I thought, just call it my name.
Right.
I joke with, that way, surely, unless I lose my memory, I'll at least remember my name and I'll come up with something cute and go, what? Oh, what was it? I can't remember, but it's Kevin Kolbe. And, I share tips on there, tutorials a lot. I'll talk about, apps and software and gear and things like that. And, I just try and make it easy too. I do several years ago at a church, we went through this training to kind of discover our gifts, our God gifts.
Yep. Yep.
And in fact, mine are right back there on a
Oh, nice.
poster.
What are it's a little Boker effect
Hang on,
at
let me make sure. Yeah.
what is
It's give, lead, create, teach, and encourage. Those are the ones that I need to apply more and more and more. So I like, I think that some of the compliments I can get is like, wow, you really made this easy. Oh, very simple. And I'm like, great. great, because who want, if you don't know how to do something, the worst thing you can do is watch a video and go, okay, I'm still as lost as I was. Now you may watch the video and go, yeah, I never want to edit my life. That's okay. But
Right.
so that's what I enjoy doing. And just kind of, figuring out as you go and being able to connect with other people. And it's been a blast. I mean, I don't consider myself a YouTuber, but just for sake of argument, if you had said to me a few years ago, what, Kevin, after TV's going to go away and you're going to have to get into digital media, but you're going to start a YouTube channel and that'll be what you're doing. I'd have been like, what? Really? Okay.
Right.
It's just wild.
That's so cool to me. And using your spiritual gifts like that, I mean, that's so important for believers. Is there anything else that you want to share or talk about before we wrap up?
Heard somebody say recently, I think it was Omar El Takori,
Mhm.
and he said, I want to paraphrase, you are where God wants you to be right now. That really struck me. I mean, I think I knew it, but I hadn't thought it out loud. And so in those moments of like, what in the world is going on? Or why can't I get this deal? Or I have to remind myself, this is what God wants me to do right now. It may not be what he wants me to do next year. I have to remain open to that.
Right.
And that's one of the things we always told our kids growing up. And I would tell them, I don't care one day if you want to be a Walmart greeter. And I don't say that disparagingly, but if that's what you want to do, be the best one out there and enjoy it and have fun. Because I had friends growing up that made everything about the money. And when you work for yourself, it's hard not to get into that. Okay, there's not a paycheck, where's it going to come from and stuff. But I had friends that just made it about the money and they were miserable. They were absolutely miserable.
Sure.
And I think there's a balance. And trust goes a long way. Faith goes a long way, even if we don't understand it in the time. Um, but I have to believe that even if I don't get it, don't understand what's going on, understand why this is happening, that God is a lot smarter than me and has proved that time and time again. So it's not either. It's my lack of faith, period. It's not that God stopped caring. It's that I just said, oh, well, why even try anymore?
Words of wisdom, and I think that's definitely important to think about that. Well, Kevin, I appreciate your time and thanks for coming on. God bless.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much for asking. And I appreciate having you on. I mean, having you on. I appreciate being on. Sure
Yeah.
show. What am I talking about?
No problem.